If you're a young entrepreneur or you feel that pull in your gut that you're meant for more, then today's episode is for you. Maybe you've got big ideas, but people see you as too young or too inexperienced. Or maybe you're stuck between working a job to survive and chasing the dream that keeps you up at night. Wherever you are right now, this episode will hit home if you're serious about building something bigger than yourself. For today's episode of the Unleash Your Ambition podcast, I'm having a conversation with Lawrence C. Harris, a 19-year-old entrepreneur, speaker, and author of 7 books who made a life-changing decision at just 16 years old while working at McDonald's. We have a conversation about what it really takes to transition from traditional employment to entrepreneurship. We also talk about the challenges of being taken seriously as a young business owner. And we also dive into the mindset required to turn your vision into a reality. If you're ready to stop waiting for permission and start betting on yourself, this episode will show you what's possible when you lead with faith, focus, and relentless belief in your vision. All right, grab your pen, your paper, and your favorite drink and get the most out of this episode. Lawrence, thank you for being here. Can you share who you are, what you do, and how you help people?
My name is Lawrence Christopher Harris, or Lawrence C. Harris. That's going to make it easier for you to find me later on. And I'm a youth empowerment speaker, entrepreneur, author, and man of the people. And the main way that I help people is that's an interesting question because the way I word it is I give people hope. There's a lot of authors out there, there's a lot of speakers, there's a lot of youth empowerment speakers, but I'm someone who, throughout my life, have faced bullying, a lot of different things. Not being taken seriously, both as an entrepreneur, not being taken seriously as a person. But now at 19 years old, I'm an example to people that no matter where you come from, no matter how you look, no matter if you did or didn't grow up with a dad, none of that. You can be someone in this world. And I help people realize what's possible.
Ooh, that's a strong intro. I love this. And this is why I wanted you on the podcast because I don't, I don't think I've ever had anyone 19 years old on my podcast. And I know there's a whole new generation of young people who are lost, who have had hard lives and they want direction. And I think of you as an example of what's possible, which is why I wanted you on the podcast, especially for the younger people out there, especially if they're on an entrepreneurial journey or they're considering it. Um, and thank you, for having the courage to go on the path that you're on because not too many, you're in a small percentage, by the way, of young people who decide to take this path, you know.
Yeah, it's
So I know we're going to talk about like how to be taken seriously as an entrepreneur. And I know you're going to use your story as an example and the things that you've learned along the way. But when did you decide that you were going to take this entrepreneurial journey?
when it became definitive to me that entrepreneurship, this is the way I'm going, was around the age of 16.
Okay.
So at 16, as most teenagers do, you get your first after school job. And there's not many after school job opportunities available. I picked McDonald's. I can say this now because she won't lose her job, but my aunt was a manager at a McDonald's, and she hired me purely off the fact that I was related to her and she knew I needed a job. And what happened was, as I'm working there, my coworkers, they're mostly teenagers. For many reasons, McDonald's will put the teenagers with the teenagers on night shifts. It's like they just don't want any funny business going on with people. And I couldn't relate to any of them. Even though we're the same age, from the same city, they saw life so differently than me. They were just so focused on the doom and gloom in the world and how nothing's ever going to go right and how people are just backstabbing and all of these things. So I start thinking to myself, okay, not only do I see them, but then the managers, not talking about my aunt, the other managers, they had been working there for 20 years, and I could just see the soul leave their eyes. They were just lifeless. And I'm thinking, okay, I don't want to be doing this. Okay, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I know I need money, but I want to do something that I actually enjoy, that I'm passionate about. And then I start looking into things like paid time off. If you want a day off of work for your son's birthday, you have to ask 2 weeks in advance. And they can just say no. And after taking all that in, it clicked in my head, okay, I don't want somebody else to be able to tell me whether I can or cannot go to my kid's birthday. I don't have kids, obviously, but I'm talking in future. So that cemented entrepreneurship is the one and only way. That's the one and only way to be your boss on your schedule, making how much you want, doing what you want, when you want.
No doubt about that. And you're lucky because you realize this early on. Uh, Most younger folks, even older folks, I'm just going to say, how about a majority of people just think they have to subscribe to what's been programmed in our society that we have to accept that,
That's what realistically most people did
yeah,
not grow up with an entrepreneur as a parent. So if you saw your mom work a job, her mom worked a job, your dad worked a
yeah,
job, his dad worked a job, and I'm not saying there is anything wrong whatsoever about getting a job.
right,
If
right,
you want
absolutely,
to, if you know, if you, we need construction workers, we need mechanics and doctors and lawyers
yeah,
and people to work at McDonald's and people at Panda Express. We need people. This
right,
isn't to talk down on employees, but it's simply to say that the entrepreneurial path, either you're going to stumble across it, like for young people. The reason so many young people want to be entrepreneurs is we have the internet. It's the easiest time ever
yeah,
to make money. We have Amazon, we have drop shipping, we have agency businesses, we have crypto, we
right,
have the internet. So prior to that, prior to let's just say 2016, 2012, around then, entrepreneurship would have been mom and pop store.
hmm,
It would have been selling water. It would have been you have your jewelry stand in the mall.
hmm,
But now we have online entrepreneurship. You can go make money on a beach in the middle of Miami if you wanted to.
yeah, you can make money in your sleep.
Yeah.
Happens to me every day, and
No,
I'm grateful
no.
for that. So
Same here. I'm
I'm
blessed for
glad
that
that
too.
you brought up that there's nothing wrong with the job. Here's the thing. I don't think everybody is meant to be an entrepreneur, just like everybody's not meant to have a job, and not everybody's meant to be a parent, and not everybody's blah, 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 right? So
Yeah.
I'm glad that you brought that point across because some people don't want to go down this route, which is fine. Uh, but because your message is specifically for those young entrepreneurs or potential entrepreneurs who are who need a different perspective on like what's possible. Like I don't know if you know my background, and I know some people that are watching and listening know my background, but I never even thought entrepreneurship was an option, because I grew up in a family where you went to college, got a career, stayed at that career until you retired. The only way that I stumbled across entrepreneurship was because I had almost died. I had to be on bed rest for months, and I needed another way to create income. And this was back this was a while back. Okay, so this is like in 2008. So the internet is nothing like the internet then is nothing like it is now. So I was looking for a work at home job online, which there weren't too many back then. And that was my intro to what was possible. That and I stumbled across it. And then once I started speaking to people and getting in spaces and rooms of people that were making their own money outside of a traditional job, like my whole
Yeah.
perspective was like blown away, you know? So when it comes to like being taken seriously, what has your journey been? Like I know that you're young and believe me, I was young too and nobody took me seriously, even in my early 20s. Like I was not taken seriously at all, especially from older folks. They kind of look at you like you don't know what you're talking about, you don't know what you're doing, which I think we can learn from everyone. I don't care what age they are, you know. So what is your journey with this?
Well, when I first started out, it began when I was 15 and I started making YouTube videos.
Mhm.
Initially, the idea was I just wanted to, you know, talk about my experiences in life, growing up, with child abuse and things like that, getting bullied up until the age of 11, not really having any friends growing up, and just trying to put stuff out there so if someone else was feeling upset, they knew there's somebody out there I can at least relate to. And making those kind of videos, I would get a lot of people who would, be judging me and saying stuff, but there were also people who would message me nice stuff like, man, I relate to this, keep going, you're inspiring me. And that's how it started out. Then as I started to learn more about like psychology and understanding how to actually give people more than just inspiration. Like, I don't call myself a youth motivational speaker for a reason. Yes, you will be motivated by my content and my books and consultations and whatnot, but empowerment is when you take it to that next level of, okay, you're inspired, you're motivated, but here's actionable steps that you can take. A lot of people who are older than me looked at me and was like, what do you think you're talking about? You're only at the time 17. Well, at the time when this first started, I was 15. Yeah. You're only 15. What do you know? And here's the thing about me. Whenever someone says that to me, I don't know how to explain it, but it like triggers something in me that
Yeah.
goes, you're about to find out.
Yeah.
Not like you're about to find out what I know.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be brash or arrogant or cocky or boastful. So instead, what I did was I learned so much about what I specialize in, which is helping teens, young adults build self love, resilience, and a positive outlook on life,
Mhm.
that I proceeded to write a book about it at 15. I
Mm.
couldn't get it published because of Amazon's laws, which makes sense. But I wrote a book about it that was 200 pages. I then made a cover for that book and then I put it up on Amazon this year, actually. I also wrote another book on it. So in total, although all of them, some of them I published, other ones I unpublished for different reasons, in total, I wrote 7 books on it. And then as time went on and I got more money to put into my business, I went out, got an official LLC, got a website custom built, got a speaker reel made, and now I also have my own office building that I pay for. So at first, people were very, who do you think you are? You're just some kid from Philadelphia with your
Mm.
dreadlocks, and you just think you're all that. You only got 400 subscribers on YouTube. Who do you think you are? Now, when people say that to me, I tell them, Google my name. And then they proceed to Google my name, and I'm like, go through the first 3 entire pages of Google. It's just me. If you search Lawrence C. Harris, it is only me.
Mhm.
So at first, people are going to be judging you. They're going to think, oh, you're just some kid. You don't know what you're talking about. And then you proceed to show them that, oh, you're not just some kid. You're actually somebody worth taking serious. And now I'm at a point in my career and in who I am as a person and my confidence in knowing who I am that people don't really say that to me anymore. People will randomly comment it on Instagram, but the people who actually have some sort of leverage, some sort of like podcast hosts and businesses that I reach out to, none of them say this to me anymore because they do that research.
Yeah. So you have the people in that were in your existing circle who knew you, who really did not lift you up and tell you what's possible, what you can do. It was a little bit of not a little bit, it was blatant belittling, which
Well,
which
one thing I want to,
some people can feel defeated with that, but you like it lit a fire under you.
yeah, it's like I
It's like
take it
with
as
me,
a
like if
challenge.
somebody says I can't do something, I'm gonna be like, oh, yes, I can. I might not say anything to them, but I'm like, it, it's like
Yeah,
it's a motivator,
what I want to add right there too
Yeah.
is that a lot of times as a young entrepreneur, realistically, the person listening to this, let's say you're 18 years old. Because if you're 18, you are legally able to go out and get an LLC, put a book on Amazon, open up a business. 18 is the legal age to do this. Realistically, your parents and your close family members, they're not going to see what's possible. You might have a few who do, but you have to believe in the dream even when it seems delusional. Because when I first got the idea that, okay, I hear about Tony Robbins, I hear about the Les Browns, and there was this guy in my city, his name is Wallow267. I met him before, fantastic guy. He went to prison for 25 years, got out, became an advocate for the youth, and now is a multimillionaire. And I hear about these sorts of people, and I'm thinking, I could do that too. That's delusional. That's plain delusion. But you have to believe in yourself and know it's possible, even if your family doesn't understand. Because when I first started this, respectfully, my mom didn't understand. She was like, okay, he's doing something with his life. He's staying out of trouble. Yeah, he's screaming into a camera in parks and on benches, but he's doing something good with his life. But now, as you develop and become better, people will start to see it because you have the vision in here. As you bring it to reality, the people who might have not understood, like your family, they weren't judging you or trying to hold you back. They just couldn't see what you see. And when you show it and you bring it to reality, then they'll realize what you knew all along.
Mm, that's some powerful stuff right there. Yes. So holding on to that vision, no matter what the external circumstances are, no matter what anyone says, whether they're your blood,
Yep.
friends, associates, neighbors, holding on to that vision, because I tell you, if we allow other voices that don't help nourish the vision, I mean, it can take people out, which is why I
All
think
the
it's so
time.
important for you to talk about these things, because these are things that are reality for entrepreneurs, young or not, especially in the beginning stages of their journey. Most people won't understand, which I think is why it's so important to surround yourself around people, whether that's online, offline, both, to be able to be around people who understand your vision and who
Yes.
can help you grow. So who do you surround yourself around? Or how about maybe not now, because you're already on the other side of
Yeah.
this, in the beginning, like who did you surround yourself with? Whether these are actual people, because I know mentors could be somebody that you read in a book that has been dead for years. But I'm curious to know like who helped you stay fueled with into your vision outside of yourself, of course.
So when it all began, I didn't really have access to, Tony Robbins or Les Brown. You can't contact these people. But what you can do is listen to their podcast. What you can do is read their books. What you can do is attend a event in your city, pay for a ticket, and just sit there and take notes. Another thing I did for getting better as an entrepreneur, work a door-to-door sales job because specifically commission only. So that means if you don't sell nothing, you make nothing. And if you get on a team that is good, like if you get on a team of people that have a good mindset and a good outlook on life, it'll transform everything. Back in summer of last year, I graduated high school and I wanted a much better job than McDonald's. I'm like, okay, McDonald's, I'm leaving this. I need something bigger and better. I'm on Indeed.com looking for jobs, and I can't figure out anything. So then I'm like, okay, scrolling through TikTok, high paying jobs for 18-year-old with no degree. And then I find out sales, like car sales. Okay, I don't have a driver's license. Can't do that. But I find there's a guy called Andy Elliott. And I see one of his videos talking about door-to-door sales. I'm like, hold up, let me see about this. Oh, I could do that. I'm qualified. Let me send in an application. So I do. The place is 2 hours from my city, but there is a bus that takes me directly to the office. So I used my last $6, hop on that bus, got an interview, and started working there. So I'm knocking on people's doors, and I start understanding not only the fact that you have to have faith even when you have 100 doors slammed in your face, even when it's hot and raining and storming, but also they have such a fantastic community of people. Working there, I was able to understand the mindset that how door to door sales transfers into entrepreneurship because as an entrepreneur, this is something people don't like talking about. If you don't make no money today, you don't make no money today. And the rent man does not care. He don't care. Okay? When I have to pay my office rent, they don't care. They say, "Do you have our money or not?" And entrepreneurship, it really it brings a lot out. Earlier I heard you mention that you think not everyone should be an entrepreneur, and I agree with
Right.
that. In
That's
part because of the faith that this stuff takes. Like, everyone's allowed to believe what they want to believe, but in the Bible, there's a lot of talk about how you have to have faith in the unseen. So
yes.
you might be in debt right now. You might be living in a one-bedroom apartment in the middle of New York, and there's rats everywhere, and you got roaches on the wall. But in your head, your faith has to be you are figuring this out. I have lost count of how many times I put my entire life savings on the line. I have lost count of how many times I have had to repair things. And I'm like, okay, this thing just came up. How many times I had to be up until 9 p.m. doing podcast interviews. But when you surround yourself with the kind of people and the kind of information and the music and the podcast and the books, that's why I wrote a book. When you surround yourself with the information and the people, however you can get access, you need to soak it up.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Lawrence, I I'm amazed by you. And I'm so happy that we crossed paths. And, for the young folks, young people out here who are trying to pave a way, because I know here in America, especially, things are things are more chaotic than usual. And I know that social media plays a big part of it. Like, my stance on it, it's not helping. You should use it with caution. Of course, I use it for my business. I'm not going to. But I think it's just the stimulation is too much for a lot of kids, and I shouldn't say kids. Well, kids and young people, because there are definitely kids that definitely want to go down this route. They already know, like at 6 years old, you know. But for the young people out here, and I know that they're hearing what you're saying, make sure that you lock onto that vision, make sure you feed your mind, um and energy and soul with the thing that's going to feed your vision, and that's including people, whether you know them or not. Again, you already said that we have access to so much stuff right now. Like it, I had the thought. I'm going on a sidebar here. I had the thought yesterday that, like, yes, it's so easy to be an entrepreneur. It's so easy to earn income to feed your dreams. You know, like for the person who, because I think you brought this up. I know I'm going on a big tangent here. Lots of different tangents, but I'm just really excited about talking with you. Um, like for the young person that has the job at McDonald's or where wherever anybody works. I really don't know these days. Like making the transition, like what what do you see for them so they can take themselves seriously to go in this direction? Because I know it's a lot, it's a big task, becoming an entrepreneur. This is a personal growth journey. It's going to test you and challenge you in ways that you probably never even thought possible. You're gonna have to do things with courage, even though you may not see the results right away. Like, would you say to the person that has the traditional job and they want to fund their business? Like, what if they're not
All right.
making enough money at the job? Like, what would
Okay.
you advise them to do?
Now, I'm going to use my own personal way this happened.
Okay.
So working at the McDonald's, typically I was averaging like $1,000 a month working part-time after school. Now, $1,000 a month, subtract out my gym membership, food, wants, needs. First thing I would say is to that young person, you have to be a bit more strict with your money decisions. So, no more eating out every night. No more of that. No more buying shoes unless you need them. No more new video games. None of that. You can still have a bit of fun. However, your fun should not be more than 30% of the money you're making. And what I would first off also say is this: once you've eliminated how much more you're spending on non business stuff, funnel that money back into something related to the business. Because what I do, there's a lot of different segments to it. There's graphic design aspects, there's camera, there's marketing, there's a lot of things that goes on behind the scenes. But to keep it simple, let's say you want to put a product on TikTok Shop, because that's going to be very common nowadays. You want to put something on TikTok Shop. Take the money that you were spending on your shoes and instead put that into ads. Then you're going to, once you start making money off of entrepreneurship, like let's say you made your first $100, first $1,000, whatever. You want to take that money and give it to somebody you trust, like somebody you trust with your life. like your mom, dad, sibling, somebody you really trust, because you're going to get the urge to go spend it all the way. You don't want to do that. You need some financial discipline. You need to improve your money habits. Because entrepreneurship, like I said, it is not just a test of what you do to make money. It's a test of your mind. It is a test of your spirit. It is a test of everything. And during that time when you're making a little bit of money off entrepreneurship, don't give in to the TikTok hype and just quit your job all of a sudden after you made your first $100. No, you're going to do both for a little bit. Until the entrepreneurship is making consistent money, you gotta do both. You're not going to enjoy it. You're not going to like it. But if you're not willing to do that part-time job and the entrepreneurship at the same time, it ain't going to work for you. Now, once you've also gotten to a point where you're making consistent money and you're able to afford to leave that job. So let's say your TikTok shop is making $5,000 a month, $10,000 a month, whatever you're making. Now, you're going to make sure that you only give yourself access to a certain amount of that money. You should not be having access to $10,000 if you're only used to $500, because your brain, this is a term I want you all to look up as you're listening to this. Your financial thermostat. When we grow up, through conditioning and what we're around, we have a number in our brain that we're used to. We're comfortable with this.
Yeah.
If you are used to $1,000 and I give you 10,000, somehow, some way, inevitably, you will end up right back at 1,000. But if you take a billionaire and you take all their money, no contacts, no nothing. You drop them in the middle of nowhere. Because of their financial thermostat mentally, you can put them in the middle of the Amazon rainforest and they will figure out a way to start making money. That's what they did with Grant Cardone. He couldn't use his name, couldn't use his contacts. They gave him $100 and a pickup truck in the middle of Arkansas.
Oh,
He turned that into a $5 million business in 3 months.
yeah.
It's because of his inner way of thinking. It's not what you have, it's not what's in the bank account that matters.
Mhm.
It's what's inside of you mentally and spiritually, which is why I tell people entrepreneurship isn't all that it's hyped up to be.
Yeah.
It's not what you see on TikTok. It's going to be a lot of time when you're going to pray. Rent due, you got 3 days to pay it, or you're getting evicted and you're on your hands and knees praying for a
Yeah.
miracle.
Yeah. Oh my
So
goodness.
the last tip I would give to,
Mhm.
the young entrepreneurs out there is understand that just because something makes a lot of money doesn't mean you should do it. Like, I'm well aware that crypto and ETFs and drop shipping and Amazon and all these things, I'm well aware they make a lot of money. I'm well aware. But I don't do it because I know what is and is not for me.
Hmm. Yes, I love that. So, where can people connect with you outside of the podcast?
Very easy. All of my social media pages, my YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, Lawrence C. Empowers. Very easy. If you want to contact me for anything more business related, like let's say you're a podcast host listening to this, you're a school principal, you run a YMCA, you're looking for speakers for youth events.
Mhm.
My email address, lawrence@lawrencecharris.com, which is also my website if you'd like to view that. You can also find my books on Amazon. Power to the People is my most recent one I got out right here. Look for that cover on Amazon.
Love it. So, for you who is watching or listening, actually, for you who is watching, look below the video. All of Lawrence's information is there. For those of you listening, or you who is listening, look in the description. Final words of wisdom in less than 10 seconds, Lawrence,
Believe
for to close out this episode.
believe in yourself and know that even when the world judges you, you are not what the world said you are. You are who you choose to be.